Hi, and welcome to a new series of vids, one in which I will look at the cards of each nation, and I'll tell you my top fives and why. I'm known as Sir Sven in the game, and we'll do our countdowns, always from 5 to 1, and we'll include the reserve card because, who knows, they might reappear at some point. And there are some outstanding cards currently unavailable, and for new players in the game, this might be your first chance to see them. So, let's get going. Number 5, the Jag Bomber. If you look at most pros' German decks, the Jag Bomber will always be there, and there for one reason only, and that's bounce. You can't underestimate bounce, and particularly in the current game, with units being able to be buffed to epic proportions, the ability to knock them back into the hand can never be underestimated. And then, once you've played it, you've got a tidy fighter in your backline. Number 4, Africa Core. For the low cost of 2 credit, this card gives you the choice of one of 3 German elites. And just what you choose sometimes just depends on the deck that you've got. I used to sometimes choose the Kriegsmarine because I would never have it in my deck, but depending on the game, with somebody's got a handhold of 9 cards, it was always worth a risk. Number 3, the Comet. This is another card that pretty much features in every German hand. If you don't have it in your German deck, you're probably doing something wrong with the game. Its blitz abilities are a great way to get rid of Wellingtons and Lancasters and other pesky bombers in the back line. And then it just pops back into your hand, ready to get played the next turn. And if you're playing against someone who doesn't have guards or healing, you could just slowly whittle down their base's HQ whilst defending yours and popping out your Comet every turn. I've won a few games this way, and frustratingly lost a few. It's not so great against guards, and its biggest Achilles heel would probably be Italy's decisive defence, but also the US with air defence and counter-strike. Number 2, Reichsresearch. It's currently reserved. This would have been one of your first cards you craft in the German elites. You could play it at turn 3. This would give you the V1 flying bomb, which was a very effective way for 0 cost to get rid of smokescreen units, stuff like the Signal Corps for the Japanese. But if you chose not to take the rocket, you could expand your research, and then on turn 6, you could have the choice again to play the card. If you chose synthetic oil at this point, it meant the next turn you could perhaps play some heavy panzers. If you did this, it was generally difficult for the opponent with such low credits to be able to deal with this panzer. But you didn't have to take the synthetic oil. You could expand the research further, and then on turn 9 you could play this, and you would have the choice between the Type 21 U-boat or the Uran project. I do have to say, I never played the Uran project. It just seemed ridiculously expensive for what it was, and your opponent could see you building up your research, so would never flood the board. Okay, time for some honourable mentions. The first one is the Schwabel. Back in the day, when Brit Air was a thing, the Schwabel was a thing, and there was nothing more satisfying than, in turn 9, unleashing the Schwabel. This onto carefully constructed after turn British cards, so that would turn a certain defeat into your victory. I loved this card. Into the Deep. This card you wanted just to hold on to and hold on to and just play at the right time when you knew your enemy was going to play a certain card. For instance, on turn 10, if you're playing against a German, the likelihood is you're going to see a Leopold, and there's nothing better than catching a high cost card with your 2-credit countermeasure. Envelop. This is still one of my favourites, and it's particularly effective when you're playing decks like tokens or blitz. The key to playing against German decks is watching how many credits they use, and if they haven't used all their credits, you got to ask, why? Is there a countermeasure? And the most likely answer for German decks is yes. The Heinkel HE115. This is another staple for all pro decks, with its ability to draw an extra card. If you're playing against this, unless you want them to overdraw, get rid of it as fast as possible. Number 1 on my top 5 German elites is, of course, everybody's favourite, the Leopold. This card is probably single-handedly the most effective card in the game. How many games I've won with it, and how many games I've been beaten, I just can't tell you. Anyone that's played the game for a long time knows both sides of that coin. The key to becoming a better cards player is anticipation. You know that if someone plays a certain deck, they're going to have certain cards, and sometimes you just have to work through the card one by one, card by card. But when it comes to turn 10 onwards, you know that that German player is going to have a Leopold at some point in their hand and play it against you, so don't swamp the board and try and have an answer for when it comes out, because it's still an effective artillery piece once played. And perhaps, if it's you that's got the Leopold, you might also want to play the L640 with its blitz effect and its destruction, meaning all friendly units retreat, which goes back to your hand, and you can play the Leopold again. If you're playing Soviets, you might like to have a Pelyakov. But most importantly, if you're playing against Germany, make sure you keep one thing in your hand that's going to take out the Leopold as soon as it appears. You don't want to be pounded by that big gun for the rest of the game, which would be a short one. Well, that's my top 5 German elites. What do you think of the list? What's yours? Leave your comments in the comments section. And next episode, we'll do British elites. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You really can't imagine just how much it actually helps the channels and garners views. And now, I can just go back to doing videos with no commentary. So, until the British Elites episode, bye bye.